Hello and welcome to the High Impact Conference for Educators. This session is titled the Reading League Ohio Information Session. My name is Chanda Coblentz and I'm going to be your presenter for this morning. I am an assistant professor at the University of Mount Union and I work in the School of Education. My primary responsibility is to train future teachers in literacy practices. And I absolutely love what I do. It's very exciting to watch the growth in our young future teachers and see them out in field experiences. Many of them are in your classrooms here in our Stark County schools. So it's a great place to be, especially right now with all of the excitement around the science of reading and how we can even become more effective in our teaching practices. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about an organization that I recently came in contact with. For about the last 5-6 years, I've been really delving more into the area of the science of reading. As many of you, I did not have a lot of that in my undergraduate work or in my graduate work, so I've been doing a lot of researching and reading on my own, and I came across this organization called the Reading League, which you are probably very familiar with some of those founding members like Louisa Moats, who many of you know from your training in letters. She is absolutely phenomenal and one of the great pioneers in this idea of the science of reading and effective reading practices. The Reading League was actually started just a number of years ago in 2015 by Dr. Maria Murray, and what the organization has come to be is a nonprofit that really just tries to raise awareness and provide a lot of professional development and webinars and resources for all of us that are in the field of education, predominantly those of us who are focusing on reading and literacy. So really it is begun on all of their research through kind of casual conversations. Some of them met and had dinner and thought, we really need to start this organization. So in the last 5 or 6 years, we have had a few states become their own organizations, and that's what we're looking to do here in the state of Ohio. So very early on in my association with the Reading League, I subscribed and got the journal, which was just published for the first time in January of 2020. And I happened to be reading and noticed a little section within that first cover of, hey, if you have any interest in maybe starting your own state chapter, email this person right here and we'll get in contact with you. So I tossed around the idea for a couple of days, thinking that surely here in the state of Ohio, where we're doing so much great work in establishing great effective reading practices, I assumed that somebody had already begun this work. So I did decide to reach out to Dr. Laura Stewart, who is our national director, and she said no one in Ohio has begun the paperwork and the official proceedings to begin a chapter. So she was a little hesitant at first in hearing that I'm from the state of Ohio because, as you all know, we have some strong roots here in the state of Ohio with the balanced literacy approach. So before we began the official process, she wanted me to put some feelers out there just through Facebook and Google forms and gathering some information. Within a 2-day period, I was able to provide for her the number of interested participants that we could continue on and begin this process. Now, of course, a pandemic happens during all of that. So paperwork and those kinds of things have been delayed by several months with some of our IRS paperwork and things like that. So I'll talk a little bit more about our founding process, but this is just kind of a basic introduction to that national organization. So again, they are wanting to empower current teachers and parents as well who want to learn more about effective literacy practices. So the mission of the Reading League, and I will just read that to you. The mission of the Reading League is to advance the awareness, understanding, and use of evidence-aligned reading instruction. So there are lots of ways that the Reading League is accomplishing that mission. Number one, they're recruiting thousands of league members. Currently, there are over 30,000 members, and that number is growing every day. They are offering live events. Now, right now, they are still virtual for the last year and a half or so, and an annual conference, which was virtual this year. But we're hoping very soon that we can have those face-to-face trainings and events and networking events and professional development and all of those wonderful things that we all love. They have been establishing a social media presence. We do not yet have our own Facebook or Instagram or Twitter account, but the national branch does have all of those. So I would encourage you to go on and look and just subscribe to that social media. You don't even have to be an official member to be a part of those groups. It's just a great way to start becoming aware and help us in this advocacy process. They have a number of resources that have been compiled for all of us to use that are free. You can just go straight to the website. You don't even have to be a member, and you can access many of those in what they call their knowledge base. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then also for forming partnerships with schools, and they do offer tailored professional development. Now, I know that many of you have gone through the letters training with your schools, even though some of those writers and contributors to the letters program are affiliated with the Reading League. This is a separate entity where they can come in and do professional development for your school, for your teachers, for your parents, if you would so be interested in pursuing that. But those are a lot of the great things that are taking place based on the mission. So the purpose, again, is to increase the knowledge of those science-based approaches to teaching reading and really training and supporting educators and all school leaders, whether you are working at the preschool level or whether you're teaching at a university like I am. They really want to equip us all and equip parents and specialists, and not just our reading specialists, but also those that are working in other areas in the school, how we can work together. And the purpose and the mission does support the belief that all children can learn to read and all teachers can learn to teach them. Even if you did not have that kind of training in your undergraduate program or even in your graduate programs, I know I did not receive that kind of training. Any of the training that I've had is what I have sought out for myself and furthering my own professional development. So we really hope to get the word out even more about these evidence-based, these science-based approaches to teaching reading. So what is the science of reading? Many of you are already very, very familiar with that term. But again, it's not a particular curriculum, so you're not going to go online and find the science of reading curriculum, although many curriculum offerings out there do align with the science of reading and are based upon that. But the science of reading does not just focus on educational theory, and that is the big change that we've seen over the last several years, is that we're now looking into cognitive psychology. We're looking at neuroscience for the first time in a number of years. These fields are now working together. We look at linguistics and other aspects of reading, everything from multiple disciplines. We're putting it together. We're figuring out how the brain reads. Why does the brain have difficulty being able to read sometimes? What are some approaches that will help all of our learners, from our gifted learners to help them improve their reading skills to our students with dyslexia? All of our students deserve the chance to learn to read and learn to read better. And again, it's not just about phonics. And I think that has been a misconception that I know I have heard out in the community of teachers and reading instructors and advocates, that sometimes there seems to be such a big push for phonics that we kind of forget that there are other components of the Big Five. So it does focus on phonological awareness, vocabulary, spelling, comprehension, all of those wonderful pieces that the National Reading Panel discovered many, many years ago are the effective pieces of literacy instruction. So the science of reading, we do base that around the simple view of reading. You may have heard of Scarborough's rope and Seidenberg and McClellan's 4-part processor. Lots of aspects of the science of reading that the National Reading League does embrace. And I do have a link here if you want to read more about the science of reading, if that's maybe something new to you. So why do we have a need for a local chapter? Many of you are already involved in different organizations, which I'm not going to name all of those, and they're doing wonderful things. But we're still not getting enough training. we're still not bringing up reading scores and proficiency as quickly and as well as we should. I have some pieces of information on here for you. The first one from the International Dyslexia Association. So according to their research, about 40% of our kids are learning to read despite the instruction they receive. So only about 40% of them. Only a third of the students in the US are achieving reading proficiency. And if you look at that third piece of information, the average 8th grade reading score declined in more than half of the states compared with 2017, the last time the test was given. And the average score in 4th grade reading declined in 17 states, and that was put out by the New York Times in 2019. So we're talking about current information and data that's being presented to us that's showing us that all of our children are still not learning to read. So we really need to continue this great work here in Ohio. Now, many of you have even been a part of writing and contributing to Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. I'm just going to read to you the vision statement, which many of you are already aware of, but Ohio's vision is for all learners to acquire the knowledge and skills to become proficient readers. The Ohio Department of Education and its partners view language and literacy acquisition and achievement as foundational knowledge that supports student success. To increase learners' language and literacy achievement, the department is urging districts and schools to use evidence-based systems and high-quality instruction, select high-quality instructional materials, and employ culturally responsive practices. And again, that is from the 2020 Plan to Raise Literacy Achievement. You will notice very many similarities with the language of the Reading League and Ohio's Plan to Raise Literacy Achievement. So we are seeing a great bit of alignment. I will not read all of this to you, but again, I'm just looking right in the middle of this quote. Ohio is committed to supporting an education system that prioritizes the language and literacy development of all learners. Each child, our future. Again, you are seeing that alignment with the National Reading League. And if we have even more resources for our teachers and our administrators and all of our specialists and for our parents, we will only further the mission of the Reading League and the Department of Education here in the state of Ohio. So the Reading League functions on 5 keystone principles. So I wanted to go over those just briefly. Again, we believe that children's current and future lives are heavily influenced by their ability to read. There is much research surrounding this principle. We know there is a direct correlation of how children are learning to read and how their lives and how their futures will turn out. We know that being a literate, functioning, contributing member in society is hugely important to the success of our children. All teachers need to be adequately prepared to teach all children to read. And maybe you didn't have that training in your undergraduate work or even in your graduate schooling, but there are resources available to help you. And the Reading League wants to point you to those resources and help you with that training. Effective instruction and curricula are 2 controllable factors. So we as teachers, we can choose how we're going to instruct our children and the kinds of materials and curriculum that we're using in our classrooms. And that's why it's very important for us to be trained to be discriminate users of materials that are provided for us. Decades of research do provide evidence about effective reading instruction, and that needs to be made available to teachers. Many teachers across the state of Ohio, across our nation, have still not yet been exposed to things like the simple view of reading, Scarborough's reading row. I know none of those things were presented to me in my education as an undergraduate student. We need to get the word out there. Effective reading instruction requires expertise and ongoing support. Our national chapter of the Reading League does have a vast amount of expertise. When you look, if you go on the website and you look and you see who are the board members, who are founding members, contributing members, you will see the list goes on and on of people that you have read their books, maybe you've taken their seminars. So they have really gathered together a great pool of educators, psychologists, professionals who are contributing with their expertise, and the Reading League is also offering support. So again, many live events, webinars, a lot of those are being recorded if you happen to miss those, and many of those are provided free of charge for you. And then if you are a member, you're given even more benefits as well. And then the last point, all children deserve a chance to learn to read, and all teachers can learn to teach them. And maybe you don't yet feel comfortable in your skills to teach children to read, but hopefully you are finding people in your school through the ESC, through maybe the Reading League, through your letters training, that's going to give you the confidence and the ability to teach your children to read. So I chose this quote by Maya Angelou that many of you probably have heard. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. One thing that I have discovered through some of the listservs and the Facebook groups and those kinds of social media and all of that, I have really encountered a lot of teachers who feel shame because they know they failed their students, because they didn't have the knowledge. They're beating themselves up about it. Some of them are getting very angry, going back to their institutions of higher learning and blaming professors and blaming textbook companies. But we're learning now. We're understanding more about the brain. There's more research available. So one thing that our national director, Laura Stewart, was very, very adamant about when I first spoke with her is we need to release teachers from the guilt and the shame that they're feeling from having taught perhaps what was not best practice. But now that we know better, we can do better. And that's the encouraging piece. So please do not feel badly if these concepts you're just hearing for the first time. Maybe you are very late in your career when you're finding out this information, but it's time we can make those changes. We have the time to do that. So please be sure that you know the Reading League is here to support you and not to shame you and not to make you feel guilty for things that you didn't yet know. Because when we know better, we do better. Okay, some of those resources I was talking about. One of the resources that you get with the paid membership is the Reading League Journal. And this is jam-packed full of hands-on practical advice, research-based evidence. It is absolutely phenomenal. This is the only journal currently out there in the educational world that does use researchers and educators, and together, we're working together and using that scientific evidence to improve practice. Now, there are other journals and other organizations that may include pieces of that, but they're not strictly focusing on that. And I will tell you that the Reading League Journal does fully embrace the science of reading, and every article is going to align with Ohio's mission and the mission of our local Ohio chapter as well. So again, they are publishing this right now 3 times a year. It's only been out for a little over a year now, but it is an exciting day, I will tell you, in my house when this Reading League Journal arrives, because it is just so practical, very reader-friendly. It doesn't read like a psychological research journal where you're having to look up a lot of terminology. It is written for educators and practitioners, and it's done in a very appealing way. And as I mentioned, many of the contributors, you will recognize their names. People like Louisa Moats, Carol Tolman, David Kilpatrick, some of those big names in this area of the science of reading. They also have a phenomenal YouTube channel. Now, I listed a few other ones as well that the Reading League does encourage you to subscribe to, but the Reading League's YouTube channel itself is a valuable, very, very valuable piece of resource for you, pieces of information. Some of the videos are only maybe 4 or 5 minutes, just a quick little tidbit of information. If there's something that you're struggling with is not very clear to you, or you're trying to think of how can I teach this effectively? How can I assess this better? I know that I personally have used some of these video clips in some of my classes, especially when we were doing a lot of our virtual and distance learning during the time of the pandemic. I was able to use these, have my students watch those and respond, and we could have some discussions via Zoom and those kinds of things, and even now in my face-to-face classes as well. So I would encourage you to look at those resources. Again, you don't have to be a member. You can just go on YouTube and subscribe to the Reading League. There are a plethora of recommended books. I'm not going to read this list to you, but I do have each of these books linked, and you'll also find this information on the Reading League's website. All of this has been, all of these books have been recommended by their board members and contributing members, so they are also very much aligning with Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. So looking at this first book here, Equipped for Reading Success, many of you may have that in your classrooms right now. Very, very practical, going through a lot of those phonemic awareness routines with children and really building those skills. I'm looking at Language at the Speed of Sound. I've read that book. It was really eye-opening. I read it about 4 or 5 years ago, and things that I learned from a different perspective have really impacted my teaching. This next book here, Essentials of Assessing, Preventing, and Overcoming Reading Difficulties, that's by Dr. David Kilpatrick. I actually use that as one of the textbooks in my literacy assessment course with my future teachers. Wonderful information. Again, there are more pieces of literature that you can read here. I look over on the next slide. Again, a number looking at Overcoming Dyslexia. This is the brand new edition that came out in 2020. Highly recommend it. Completely revised. Everything's been updated. Great, great for understanding dyslexia. Looking at, on down the list a little bit, Speech to Print. That's the 3rd edition. I believe it came out last spring. So that is the newest edition as well, and that is by Louisa Moats. A number of reading teachers, and even through some of those connections with the Reading League, have been doing some book studies on speech to print. I was fortunate enough to go through that last spring when we were all in quarantine, and we did 1 chapter a week. So I would really encourage you to look at some of these pieces of work to really solidify in your mind the importance of evidence-based practice and teaching in the reading classroom. Another great resource for you is the podcast. This on this slide, I have a picture of Laura Stewart, who is our national director. She is absolutely lovely, just really wants to get information into the hands of teachers, practitioners, and she is now hosting a podcast. You can access it through the direct link here, or you can, again, just go on to the Reading League's website. One of her very first podcasts, she interviewed Emily Hanford. Maybe you're familiar with her and her work. And that kind of groundbreaking article that came back, I believe it was in the fall of 2018. And she really did a lot to kind of expose some of the faulty teaching practices that are still going on, and really discussing the need for our pre-service university programs, college programs, to really embrace the idea of the science of reading. And she speaks to her directly. So that's a really interesting one. A lot of other well-known researchers and reading practitioners and scientists. She just does a great job of picking people to interview. It's very, very helpful and very interesting. I guarantee you, you will learn a lot. So how do you become a member? Again, as I said, there are over 30,000 members at this point, and membership is free. So with your free membership, you can just click on this link that I have here at the bottom. You can click either paid membership or free. If you click on the free one, you'll just enter your name, email address, basic information there, and then you immediately will be added to their email list, and you'll get those monthly e-newsletters. You will get advance notice for some of the different professional development events that are going on, some of the initiatives that are taking place around the country. So it's going to really keep you informed. So I like that. Now, if you want to pay the $100 per year, now I know that may feel like a lot, especially for all of us who are teachers and we're always spending a lot of our own money. But I will tell you, you'll get access to the journal, and you get the hard copy journal as well. I know there's nothing like holding it in your hands and being able to highlight and annotate as you're reading. So I For me, it was kind of a no-brainer. I needed to have that paid membership. And also, as a paid member, you will get access to some webinars and trainings that are not available to those who have the free membership, or they are available for a fee and you do not have to pay those additional fees oftentimes, or you get a reduced rate at things like conferences and things like that. So I would highly encourage you to look at that. Okay, so the Reading League Ohio. So we are set to officially launch later this summer. Again, because of the pandemic and paperwork being pushed back and things being on hold and things just stopping for a while, we didn't launch in April like we were supposed to. So we got a revised date, and that's okay. It's given us a lot of time to really get together as a board and start looking at some professional development offerings that we are excited to share with you very soon. We're hoping to have that going in September, so we will make sure that we get you notified. Again, until we become until we officially go through the onboarding process, which again is like mid-July, we will not have our own email address, and we will not have our own Facebook or Instagram page or our own link on the national page. So until then, I would encourage you to go ahead and begin your membership now. Once we are officially launched, the National Reading League branch, they will send out a notice through their Facebook and email that there's a new chapter started. We will have a link on the main page, and there's no cost to join the Ohio branch. We have decided that because we are already paying that $100 fee to be national members, we do not want to charge our members here in Ohio. So we are hoping to offer very low cost and free professional developments for you, in addition to what you're receiving with your national membership. So no additional fee at all. There's not even any additional paperwork. We will launch that Facebook page. We'll probably send out a Google form just so we can get you in our email system and keep you updated, anything that's going on, especially just for the state of Ohio. And we also just want to hear from you. So it'll be a great way for us to be able to communicate. So what does it really mean to be a chapter of the teaching or of the Reading League? It's just a grassroots movement. It's serving a particular state. So we're going to kind of be just doing this. What will best meet the needs for our learners, our teachers, our parents, our advocacy groups here in the state of Ohio. So we can really serve our own people very well by having things tailored to what's going on in our state and our current climate. Again, we are directly affiliated with a very well-respected national organization. We will continue to align with the mission of the Reading League. That is something that we had to put in writing, that we do believe and we do support the mission. We will gain more exposure, some marketing, hopefully be able to increase even more advocacy for our students and our future teachers and current teachers and retired teachers and everyone that really wants to make sure that our students are getting the best educational experiences possible. And then again, as I already said, you're going to get access to everything that the Reading League has to offer. So our founding board members, as of right now, we're starting with a very small board just during this initial paperwork process and planning process. And we do hope to reach out to more of you and build our board. We would like to have a lot more diversity, a lot of different backgrounds and contributing opinions. So if that's something that you would ever be interested in, we'll make sure that we send out some information when we start building our board. So as for now, I will be the founding president. And again, my name is Chanda Coblentz. I live here in Northeast Ohio, right here in Stark County. Our vice president is Michelle Elia, who you may recognize her name with the Department of Education. Our secretary is Angeline Tice, and she's been doing a great job of just keeping notes of all of our meetings and really contributing some wonderful ideas. And then our treasurer is Debbie Hartwig, who is also here in Stark County. So we are very excited to get this launched. We will be hosting, or I will be hosting, an information session coming up soon during this conference. So I would encourage you to log in and then we can actually just speak back and forth through Zoom. In the meantime, I do have my email address on there. Still, I'm using my work email address. We don't yet have the Reading League email addresses. So hopefully that will be coming very soon this summer. But in the meantime, I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions at all. And you're probably sensing my excitement about this. And I think that here in Stark County is just a great place to be launching something that can have the potential for even greater impact. So I thank you for attending today, and I hope to see you during the live question answer session.